Hi, welcome here today. We have a really exciting topic, and that is burnout for healthcare leaders. But specifically, I'm going to talk about the top 10 tips for beating burnout for healthcare leaders. My name is Jeff Comer. I'm a doctor of psychology as well as a hospital CEO, and this is a very, very personal topic for me. As a CEO for many years, I have faced burnout, I've struggled with it, and I have over the years, kind of combining that experience with my doctorate in psychology, come up with these top 10 tips for beating it. So that's what we're going to cover today. So dig in and hopefully there's some techniques that can help you here. Now, you may be questioning, why am I talking about burnout for leaders? Shouldn't I be talking about the frontline caregivers, the nurses, the doctors, the EMTs, the ones who are really in the life and death situations? Absolutely. I'm not saying we should be neglecting them at all. They need help with burnout very, very much. But what I'm here to do today is to help the leaders who are also experiencing burnout, because as a leader, I can tell you there is very little help out there for us. Very few people are focusing on leaders, and yet we experience burnout rates, believe it or not, actually at a higher rate than do the frontline caregivers. Most of the research indicates that frontline caregivers are burned out at a rate of about 40%. Now, this is post-COVID, but healthcare leaders, a lot of research on us saying that we are burned out at 73 to 85%, depending on which study you look at. So folks, most of us in leadership roles are actually burned out, and yet we feel so isolated and so alone. And so that is my purpose today, to let you know as a leader, you're not alone. You do need to have a focus on burnout. You do need some techniques to help you. So these top 10 are really geared for leaders. Now, of course, they apply to frontline caregivers as well, or anybody else in other professions. But I'm focusing on healthcare leaders today, okay? So let's just dive in. We're gonna move quickly through these. The first one is to focus on what you can control. This is the single most important tip I'm going to give you today. Take control of your burnout. Burnout will not go away, folks. It will continue if you don't do something about it. In fact, it will get worse and it will carry over into other areas of your life, which I'll talk about in a second. So make a concerted effort, make a pledge to yourself that you're going to take control of your burnout and deal with it. Number two, understand that burnout is a stress-induced disorder. Those of you that follow me know that I talk a lot about stress and what it is, so I don't have time today to go into that. I want to focus on these top 10 tips, but there's a lot of things that I have written about and talked about that really go into what underlies stress, what causes it. But what I want you to understand is that burnout is driven by stress. So by really understanding your stress, understanding the stressors that lead to your anxiety, to your stress, that can help you to deal with your burnout. Burnout is a stress-induced disorder, and you must treat it as such. Third, you have to deal with the cumulative effects of burnout. Now, what do I mean by that? Because we think of burnout as being at work, right? That's typically what we think. I'm burned out at work. I'm burned out with my job, burned out with my career. However, as a psychologist, I can tell you plenty of people, and they don't want to admit this, but plenty of people are burned out with their kids, with their significant other, with their spouse, with their hobbies. Everything in your life can eventually become a target for burnout. Sometimes we do things too much. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough of a break. Sometimes we've got stress in certain relationships that can lead to a burnout condition in that relationship. So burnout doesn't just happen at work, it happens everywhere. Now, I said I'm focused on burnout for healthcare leaders today, but here's what's important. It carries over. These effects from different areas of your life, they are cumulative, they compound on each other. I can promise you, if you're burned out with your kids, burned out with your spouse, burned out with your self-care program, your workout routine, you're probably burned out at work too, because they all blend together and make each other worse. They are multi-directional, okay? Very important concept. Now, the next one, when I talk about this, a lot of people are like, wow, I never thought of this. You have to consider the effects of positive stress, which is called eustress, and negative stress, what we commonly know as distress. Eustress and distress both are stress producing. I know that doesn't make sense. Trust me, I get it. But let's use an example. If you get married, most people would consider marriage to be one of the most amazing, positive, wonderful days of your life. It is also considered one of the most stressful days of your life. So this great event, you found your life partner, you're committing yourself to them, this beautiful day, and it's very stressful as well. So keep in mind, although you may have a lot of negative stress in your life, when you have positive stress, it is still stress, okay? That promotion that you got at work, that can produce a lot of stress. It's a great thing. Maybe you got your dream job. It is still causing psychophysiological stress internally, and it compounds. So just understand, even though you've got a positive thing in your life, it can still produce stress that can carry over into burnout conditions. Now, the next one, number 5, changing your mindset to stress. And there's kind of 2 ways I'm going with this. The first is what we call in psychology as the negative bias, the negativity bias. This is actually an evolutionary psychological concept. Our brains, and I know that those of you that listen to my videos have heard me talk about this before, our brains are still hardwired for being on the grasslands of Africa many, many, many years ago, many generations ago. Although society and technology have caught up and surpassed that experience on the grasslands, our brains have not evolved fast enough to keep up with where we are today. So when you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, you want to look at negative things, because negative things from that context can kill you. That tiger that's out there hunting you, that competing tribe, that clan that wants to take over your clan, those are all things that can obviously kill you or cause, significant harm and injury. So your brain is hardwired to look at the negative things in life. Again, it works great from an evolutionary perspective, but in today's terms, always looking at the negative is quite maladaptive. It can lead to more stress and more burnout. So you've got to change your mindset from that negativity bias to a positivity bias. And it's very difficult to do. You have to focus on it. You have to make a concerted effort to try to find the positive, to look at the glass being half full and not half empty. Now, the second part of changing your mindsets gets into very specific issues that I have found as a leader and with leaders helping them as a psychologist. And that is, as leaders, we tend to wear stress as a badge of honor. When we are working with our colleagues, when we are working with one another, we tend to brag about our stress. Oh my gosh, I worked 18-hour days for the last, year of my life. And well, I worked 7 days a week. And we're always trying to kind of compete with each other, if you will, for who has the most stress. It's kind of a badge of honor. We tend to feel if we're not stressed, we're not working hard enough. We're leaders, we're supposed to be stressed. You have to change that mindset as well. It is not a positive thing to be stressed. It is very detrimental to your health and to your productivity at work, into all aspects of your life. So again, changing these mindsets are so very important. Next, number 6, accept that some stress can be beneficial. Okay, so here I am saying how bad stress is and we got to get rid of it. We don't want to have it, but some of it can be good. What's an example? An example, public speaking. A lot of us are terrified of public speaking. It's one of the greatest fears in life, actually. So how can stress be helpful to you with public speaking? Well, if you're very, very stressed about this speech you've got to give next week, you can use that constructively. You can research your topic a lot more, get a lot of different articles, look at what other people are saying about the topic, just really delve into the information. 2, you can spend a lot more time on your slides. Make sure you get that presentation just how you want it, that it flows really well. 3, you practice that speech. You rehearse it in front of a mirror. Maybe you videotape yourself like I'm doing right now, practicing it so you can watch yourself and make sure that your presentation is the way you want it to look to your audience. By doing all of those things, you can actually make the outcome of the speech less stressful. So although you're stressed up front, you use that stress constructively, and it actually decreases the stress on the back end, so to speak. So stress on an acute care basis, on a short-term basis, can be very helpful to you. Where stress is destructive is when it becomes chronic, unmitigated, long-term stress, which is exactly what burnout is. So some stress can be helpful to you. Keep that in mind. Use it effectively. Number 7. Everybody's going to disagree. I'm already dreading telling you about number 7, but stop multitasking, right? We all multitask. In fact, when you go to job interviews, a lot of times they'll say, are you a good multitasker? The answer should always be no. From a psychological perspective, none of us can multitask well. The human brain can focus on one thing and one thing alone. When we start trying to take multiple tasks at the same time, it causes a cognitive dissonance, meaning that our brain has to jump over here and then back over to here. It's drawing from different aspects of your memory, your experience to deal with one particular issue. But if you throw another issue in, it intermingles it and confuses it. We cannot multitask effectively. Multitasking almost always leads to reduced performance and increased stress, which of course can lead to burnout. So in your jobs, with your relationship, with your kids, quit trying to multitask. Focus on the task at hand. Be mindful of that present moment and what you're doing right then. That can help you as much as anything. This tip is a really important one, but I know most of you are going to say, I'm not going to do that. I've got to multitask. Guys, I get it. I've been there myself. I'm multitasking all the time too. But please try to focus on what you're doing at that given time and then move on to the next task. You will be much more effective. You will have a lot less stress. Okay? I can see the head shaking already. No. But trust me, give it a try. Number 8, I talked about how leaders tend to feel that we're kind of alone out there. We don't really realize that everybody else is burned out. We realize that there's not many people focusing on helping us with our burnout because they're focusing on the frontline caregivers. Don't do that. Tip 8, don't isolate yourself. Reach out to your colleagues. Guys, I know for a fact from the research, 73 to 85% of the people watching this video, healthcare leaders, are burned out. You're not alone. Chances are very good your good friend, your colleague, the person you network, a peer down the street is as burned out as you are. Reach out to that person. Talk to them. You could say, misery loves company. I don't like to look at it that way. I like to look at it that we are socially networking. We are communicating with one another. We're kind of venting. We're getting frustrations out, emotions out, and we're doing it with a person that understands what you're going through. So reach out to your peers, reach out to your network. If that's not feasible, reach out to me, reach out to another psychologist, somebody who understands stress, somebody who understands burnout, and let them help you as well. Okay, there's a lot of help and resources out there, but don't feel you're alone and don't isolate yourself further. Very, very important in any aspect of your life. Okay. Number 9, implement meaningful self-care. I get so frustrated with this concept of self-care because it is so misunderstood and abused. Typically, we think of self-care as being at the gym 5 hours a day, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or running, a marathon, or starving ourselves on our diet. It's none of those things. It is also not being completely self-indulgent and neglecting your responsibilities. There's a balance between the two of those extremes, okay? Self-care are techniques and principles that help you to achieve overall wellness. Wellness is the balancing of health factors. So, health factors could include physical health, emotional health, psychological health, spiritual health, financial health, environmental health, social health, all these different factors that go into a healthy person. When you balance all of those, it leads to wellness. So an example of somebody who does not have wellness but has aspects of health would be a world-class triathlete. This person arguably is fit as anybody in the world, right? They have amazing physical health. But let's say that same person also has major depressive disorder. So they have great physical health, but terrible emotional and psychological health. This person does not have wellness. Self-care techniques to help that person focus on the mental health aspects would be very, very valuable. I could do hour-long videos on self-care. There's a lot of great information out there on it, but please make sure you are implementing meaningful self-care that leads to overall wellness and health. Hopefully that makes sense. If there's questions on that, guys, reach out to me. I love talking self-care. It's definitely a passion of mine, and it's so good for you as a professional, as a healthcare leader, as a human being, as a spouse, as a father, across the spectrum. Self-care really is important. Make the time for it, okay? Finally, we're at the last one of my top 10, and this is another important one. I said the very first top 10 was the most important, which is to take control. This one I think is equally important, and it's a very simple one in concept, and that is to embrace what you are passionate about. Find that thing that you love. Find that thing that drives you. Maybe you had a passion for your career 10 years ago and you've kind of lost it. Reignite that passion. Find what you loved about it initially. In your marriage, as a psychologist, guys, I see all day long marriages that used to have passion and energy and intimacy and fun. And then over the years, they became so serious and the passion's gone, the romance is gone, the intimacy is gone. You can find that again. Find that passion in your life. Find what engages you, what energizes you. Again, folks, remember, all this is cumulative. So if you find that passion in your marriage that you lost for the last years, if you find that again, it will carry over to your work setting. If you find that passion in your career, it will carry back over to your relationship. It all is intermingled together. So find those passions that drive you, that you love, and really embrace them. My top 10, I hope these are helpful to you. Folks, I'm in this with you. I'm burned out in many aspects of my life at any given time. I am also struggling to implement these top 10. I can tell you, as someone who's been doing this as a CEO for many years, and someone who's a doctor of psychology, these top 10 can really help. They can make a huge impact in your life and a huge difference. Give them a try. Let me know what you think. I hope this is helpful. And as always, please leave me comments, send me messages. You guys are always just a pleasure to hear from you. And it really does give me passion and meaning in my life to hopefully help you guys with your careers and your life. So I will talk to you all again soon.